lot of projects have emerged in global north called shifting the power, empowering local organizations, etc., etc. And I start wondering, why do you need to empower me as an external entity within my own context? You have disempowered me by encroaching upon my space. What you need to do is just vacate it. No? And if you did that, then we will struggle on our own and come back. But you want to be very benevolent, like East India Company, which kept colonized India and said, okay, now we give you independence. But the thing is, you are not doing charity with us. You are doing something wrong. So that's why I don't feel very comfortable with empowerment, because uh, to me it looks like that international, or unfortunately, we all these our organizations have a mission, a vision that is sidelined. What is primary is the amount of funding we mobilize every year. On the basis of that, performance is appraised of the country heads, not the number of problems resolved, but the millions of dollars mobilized. That's the primary thing. And that's why when Ukraine happens, where fund mobilization is very easy, everyone goes there, leaving Yemen, Syria, Sudan, South Sudan, Afghanistan behind, because they are not attracting much funding. Ukraine, and they will be there as long as something else doesn't happen which is more attractive to funding. So we are not solution centric, we are funding centric. Diaspora has a role, because diaspora, you have two responsibilities. You have a responsibility towards the host country, the betterment of the host country, but you also have a desire that for whatever reason you had to get displaced, you want your country to get flourished, you want Syria to come back to its glory, Yemen to its, so are seeking solutions. International organizations will not do, most of them, for geopolitical reasons and for obsession with funding. We have to be solution centric, not funding centric, and there diaspora and local organizations can play the role which no one else is playing.
I can I jump in? No, I love that. Absolutely. I am all for. Why in the heck are you even coming into the country in the first place? So I'm fully on board with what you're saying. However, I would like to respond to Relia. Relia, what I mean by this is that it is a shame that after 12 years in Syria, we are still providing food baskets. But this is because of the mandate by the donors, by the governments, by the international governments. I am against this. What I am trying to say is that when we, as myself, even for example, in my organization, I am pushing donors, advocating against allowing continued reliance on emergency aid. This is unacceptable. Why is a family having to be reliant on a food basket? This is unacceptable. Now, what you need to be doing, donors, that you think you are all heroes to Syria or to other countries, is that we are giving funds. No, you give funds for the right reasons, not to make them reliant on you. So you give them to empower them, quote unquote, that word, to engage them, to allow them to go back and be self-reliant, to allow them to go and grow their own crops, to allow them to go and use the resources of the land and build their homes again and build their communities again, so they don't need you anymore. This is what I mean. So absolutely, 12 years that we are still accepting food baskets, enough. It's unacceptable. That's what I mean, Ghalia.
Great.
Dr. Hani, do you want to say something about this point?
Dr. Hani has to be unmuted.
Muted. Let me quickly unmute it. Come on, quickly unmute.
I think my mind is far away on the role of the diaspora, but brain drain started, I saw it for the first time during tsunami in January 2005, when I found one of our workers who used to get $200 was offered instantly $2,000 from one of the INGO who landed by parachute actually in the area. Actually, this is number one. Number two is I would like to not use colonialism anymore and to try actually to delete it from our discussion and changing it by trust building and confidence building. We have ability, we have resources, but we need to give the confidence to the younger generation and enable them and empower them to say what they want to say, to defend the local community. Without the participatory approach of the local community, all our projects are failure, unfortunately. We have to go bottom up. In the 70s, if you remember, my brother and my sister, that the parachute ideology of the Western international organization coming with solution from Rome, from London, from New York, even from the Middle East, when they started to go to the international field with a certain culture. Donor culture is very serious issue that we need to discuss, whether the donor culture from a government or donor culture from INGO, which is INGO are in the West or in the East. Each one of us is coming with a package, which is called donor culture. That's why the only solution for you in Syria, Northwest or Northeast, is to have this kind of coalition, which we do not believe in it, we do not invest in it, we would not trust ourselves on the local ground, Sister Marwa, because you are very heavily involved in Northwest Syria. I'm struggling with a lot of Syrian organizations to come back to sit down on one platform, and they're still, some of them called me names because of my name, because of my background. They don't see the big issue of the diaspora or of the needs in Syria as Northwest or North. Now, if there is no access, unless you go through the government area, who is going to give fund to the organization working in the Northwest or different countries? And what we see nowadays is the donor culture, the political diverse approach of the government to give this area and not this area, and this area and not this area, which led our organization to be fund driven, not needs driven. Unfortunately, with all the success of the Syrian organization in Turkey, especially from Turkey, they still actually controlled by the smell of the fund, where it's coming from, not the smell of the sweat or the smell of the blood or the smell of the agony of the people inside the area they are working in. So they have to get the fund. And this actually not only from the West, to be very honest. The Arabs are putting conditions on the culture of the people. You have to say, meet some certain criteria as well. So brain drain, we have to have a policy of brain gain. Brain gain, we have to invest in the younger generation inside India, inside Pakistan, inside Syria, inside Yemen, inside Somalia, inside all this. This number one. Number two is we are not going to be defeated by the word colonialism. I was one of the people who are actually promoting it maybe 20, 15 years ago. But nowadays, we have to use the word confidence building, trust building, building leadership of younger generation. Thank you.
Could I just sorry, no, you go ahead first.
I have 50 points for the road. I said
we need to close, so we can take a final remark from Marwa, and I would like to make one statement and then we can close. Fatima, if that's okay?
Yes, please. And I wanted to say that even though we will go on a 10-minute break, the chat is open for you two or for all of us to be, still engaging, even though some of us will take 10 minutes break. But go ahead, Sutanshu, just let's close the session for now.
Marwa,
we will answer the questions.
Yeah. No, actually, I was going to respond to someone in the chat. And then could we go into final comments? Is that okay? Does that work with you? Can I just respond to someone in the chat?
We have just exceeded by 1 minute, so we have to be very mindful.
Is it okay? Is it okay, Fatima? I
ahead, you
just
have
wanted
1
to
minute.
respond, كنت عايزة بس to respond to Khaled El-Fajr. Khaled, yes, I must say that I understand the Syrian context very, 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 very well. That's number one. I am involved in the Syrian context now for over between 6 to 8 years. I am leading on the interventions for programming and advocacy. I am aware of the context in which Syria is playing. It's very different, very, very different from other contexts, as I mentioned earlier. We are dealing with various de facto groups. We are dealing with people that have no food. We are dealing with people that don't have access to water. We are dealing with people that are being prevented from going to school, children. We are dealing with various issues. And we're also dealing with, as Dr. Hani said, many Syrian organizations, okay, that we cannot come together around one table and come to a consensus about a specific mandate or a message to share to the world. Yeah? What I am trying to say is that if we are going to criticize the Syrian context and keep on saying that we are the underdogs, we are this, we are that, we need help, we need this, believe me, it will be ignored. Yeah? So what we have to make sure to get across to the world is that there are over 4.5 million people, almost half of which are still living in camps in dire situations, and that if we do not get support for them, there are generations of children who will not have an education, who will not have a future, and there are families that will die of hunger, malnutrition, and death at the end. And we cannot allow that to happen. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And before we close, Dr. Hani, it's always such a pleasure listening to you. You have such an immense experience and creator of so many institutions, global institutions. People of my age or older would can very easily reflect that civil society 3-4 decades ago was entirely different. The entire aid architecture, what we see today, didn't exist that time. Most of the civil society organizations were movement-based advocates, not relying on writing project proposals, log frame, and this and that, talking about the northern jargons. Then started this new phase of aid colonization when northern organizations move, and aid comes with some strings attached. It doesn't come without any conditions. So aid has a purpose from north to south. And that started creating a mentality among ourselves. See, we still have that mentality. As an Indian, I know that whatever happens in north is better and we need to follow that. We need to emulate that. That's our problem. So that's why we want to make our organizations like Oxfam, World Vision, Save the Children, losing our own characteristics. I think now there was a work on two fronts. One, we as local and national organizations go back, trace our history 3-4 decades ago or even longer. What were the characteristics? And we try reviving that. And that means a lot of informality. And how can we go back to that informality? Not by, not through this current formal aid architecture. We need a different setup, informal setup to support this revival of civil society movement. And that can be done through support from diaspora. Dr. Hani already gave statistics, the huge volume of funding through remittances from diaspora to their the country of heritage. I think this is a good beginning, Fatima, Dr. Hani. Can we take it forward that how can we help with engagement of diaspora, revival of the old civil society movement, which is more solution-centric, which is more for the well-being of the people than just receiving funds and utilizing and filing audit report. I stop here. Thank you very much. Fatima, thank you, Tina, for giving us this opportunity.